They lied to us for years, and most of us still don't even realize what's really going on. People keep asking what really happened in the last Canadian election. Was it rigged? Not in the traditional sense. There weren't tampered ballots or hackers flipping votes. But manipulation? Absolutely. What we saw was a carefully engineered political environment where information, perception, and emotional response were all tightly controlled. It wasn't fraud in a legal sense, it was something much more sophisticated. The most powerful tool in this election wasn't a ballot box or a voting machine, it was the narrative. And most Canadians didn't even notice it happening. What made this manipulation so dangerous was its subtlety. It wasn't about what people were told, it was about what they weren't. In Canada, regulatory bodies like the CRTC control what broadcasters can and can't say. But what's lesser known is how those same regulations affect digital platforms. Social media algorithms here are calibrated to elevate government-approved messaging. What Canadians see in their feeds isn't the same content trending in the UK or Australia. Independent or critical perspectives are quietly buried, while narratives favorable to the federal government are elevated. The result is a curated reality, one that leaves millions of voters thinking they're informed, when in fact they're being managed. The role of the media, particularly the CBC, can't be overstated. During the campaign, Prime Minister Mark Carney proposed another $150 million in funding for the CBC. Supporters called it essential for public journalism. Critics called it a payoff. Either way, the move raised serious questions. Why does a supposedly independent broadcaster need so much money from the government it reports on? Why is it that dissenting voices, especially from the conservative side, are portrayed as radical or dangerous, while far-left ideas are normalized without scrutiny? The Liberals and their media allies effectively framed the entire election conversation, deciding what issues mattered and which didn't. And once again, many Canadians didn't see the framing at all. Mark Carney's rise to power was no accident. A former Bank of Canada and Bank of England governor, Carney entered politics with elite backing and instant media credibility. His campaign was marketed not just as a political effort but as a moral mission. The Liberals positioned him as Canada's savior from dangerous populism. Meanwhile, legitimate conservative critiques on the economy, public safety, and immigration were framed as hostile or backward. It wasn't just bias, it was a full-blown narrative war. And with the help of state-backed media and digital algorithms, Carney's message always had the louder microphone. Pierre Poilievre, on the other hand, found himself fighting uphill. His bold stance to defund the CBC resonated with many Canadians tired of one-sided reporting. But he faced a dilemma: engage with media that openly despised him or try to route around them entirely. His decision to avoid outlets like CBC and CTV meant he missed opportunities to directly challenge their narratives. And when you don't show up to those conversations, you leave the stage to your opponents. In the end, his campaign gained ground, 25 more seats, over 8 million votes, but the media machine worked tirelessly to ensure he never looked like a safe option to undecided voters. The NDP, under Jagmeet Singh, was another casualty of this election. In many ridings, the party barely registered. Some even lacked candidates altogether. Singh's leadership had clearly faltered, but what's less discussed is how little media coverage the NDP received. While Liberals were championed and Conservatives vilified, the NDP was simply ignored. When Singh did appear in the press, it was often in the context of his alliance with the Liberals, a move that alienated his base. Some questioned whether this was just political miscalculation or something more coordinated. Either way, the lack of visibility left the Liberals with a clearer path to re-election. The media's tactics weren't just about who got airtime, they were about what narrative stuck. One of the most damaging myths pushed during the campaign was that Poilievre would attack women's rights. There was no evidence, no policy proposal, no platform promise. But the claim was repeated enough that it created doubt and fear. It's a classic emotional manipulation tactic. If you can't beat your opponent with facts, make people afraid of what they might do. And it worked. Swing voters, especially in suburban ridings, were swayed not by what Poilievre said, but by what they were told to fear. The core of this manipulation lies in how we consume information. Canadians tend to trust their institutions, perhaps more than most Western countries. But that trust has been weaponized. The same CBC programs that used to unite the country now serve as tools to isolate dissent. Legacy media no longer acts as a check on power, it has become part of it. Meanwhile, truly independent outlets are vilified as far-right, even when they simply present data the establishment doesn't like. It's not about ideology, it's about control. Carney's government has doubled down on this model of managed perception. From pandemic messaging to economic reporting, the federal communication strategy has become one of emotional saturation and repetition. The facts matter less than the feeling. If the public feels safe, they'll accept anything, even soaring housing costs, decaying infrastructure, and record debt. The focus isn't on solving problems, it's on managing how those problems are perceived. The liberal strategy, refined over years, is to outlast criticism, outspend opposition, and outnarrate reality itself. Despite all this, the Conservative Party's performance in the election wasn't a loss, it was a warning shot. Millions of Canadians rejected the media-approved version of reality. They saw the hypocrisy, the waste, the censorship, and said, enough. But to win next time, the Conservatives can't just play defense. They need to challenge the system head-on. That means confronting the media monopoly, calling out algorithmic bias, and presenting Canadians with an alternative vision that's both truthful and unafraid. The lesson from this election is clear. If you let your opponent define you, the facts won't matter. The Conservatives can't afford to keep reacting. They need to start leading. That means showing up in unfriendly media spaces and turning every ambush into an opportunity. It means building alternative networks that bypass government messaging altogether. And above all, it means speaking plainly and boldly to Canadians who are still trapped in a manufactured reality. This wasn't just another election. It was a referendum on who controls the story of Canada. For too long, that control has rested with institutions that see themselves as moral authorities, rather than public servants. It's time to break that monopoly. Canadians don't need to be protected from information, they need to be trusted with it. And until that trust is restored, our democracy will remain vulnerable to the very forces it claims to defend against. Now more than ever, your voice matters in this ongoing debate. Do you support the pipeline's first argument that emphasizes economic growth through energy production? Are you concerned about the implications of privacy under Bill C-2? Regardless of your stance, it's crucial to engage in this conversation thoughtfully and respectfully. After all, this isn't just a headline, it's about the future of our country and the principles that guide our democracy. Let's discuss these pressing issues and work towards a better understanding of the path forward.